Hello, everyone, and welcome to PR Tech Wednesdays. This is the weekly webinar where thought leaders discuss the latest in PR tech. If it's Wednesdays, it's PR Tech Wednesdays. Welcome to everyone from around the world. I'm your host, Eric Schwartzman. And you know, our business is changing so rapidly, I feel like waiting around for conferences to keep up to date is too slow. And actually, there are no conferences anymore. So I put this weekly event together to bring us together as a community on a more regular basis. So if you're here, welcome. This is your community too. And I'm glad you're here. We do this every Wednesday from 12 to 1 Pacific time. It's free, and you can sign up at prtechwednesdays.com. So this week, we have an expert panel of Los Angeles-based public relations leaders that I'm excited to introduce. I know a lot of public relations leaders in LA and would have loved to have had everyone on the panel, but the panels that are on today were the top-ranking websites for the keyword Los Angeles public relations, according to SEMrush. And so that's why I chose them. I didn't tell them that. They're finding that out right now.
That's great news.
We were supposed to have 3, but we had some technical difficulties with Amy Levy. She's still trying to join in, and if she's able to do that, we'll add her to the call. But we have Bob Gold of Bob Gold & Associates. His clients include Amazon Studios, Hong Kong Trade Development Council, ESPN, Corning, and many others. Bob, welcome.
Thank you.
And Kimberly Goodnight of Media Playground PR, which reps some of the hottest LA fashion brands and accessory and beauty and lifestyle brands. Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
This episode is presented by the 2020 Media Monitoring Buyer's Guide. This is the most comprehensive, up-to-date analysis of traditional and social media monitoring technology available. It's 54 pages. It's vendor neutral. I wrote it because I felt frustrated by the amount of information that was out there to help make a buying decision around media monitoring. It's got a feature by feature comparison chart that I put together side by side. It also has user ratings for agency users, client users, and executive sponsors. So you can kind of see how individuals that actually use the platform think it performs over time.
Right.
And you can download a copy of that at ericschwartzman.com/monitoring. Our bookstagram of the week is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Now, this is the most successful motivational self-help book ever written. In 1912 in New York City, Dale Carnegie was holding these seminars where he was basically teaching what was in the book. In 1934, a publisher from from Simon & Schuster took the class and afterwards said, "You got to let me turn this into a book." He put a stenographer into the class, wrote it down. The first 5,000 copies sold right away. Since then, there's been 17 editions and 30 million copies sold. So it's the most successful motivational self-help book of all time if you haven't read it. There's 7 things the book will do for you. 1, it'll help you make friends quicker and easier. 2, it'll help you increase your popularity. 3, it'll help you win people over to your way of thinking. 4, it'll increase your influence, your prestige, and your ability to get things done. 5, it'll help you win new clients. 6, it'll make it easier to handle complaints and avoid arguments. And 7, it'll make you a better public speaker. If I had to sum this book up in one word, I'd say it's about empathy. Empathy, which is really the basis of all relationships. So if you have a chance to check it out, I think you'll enjoy it. It's a classic. The chat room is open for questions, so feel free to ask away. Welcome to everyone. Let's get started. And I'd like to, yes, Bob?
I just wanted to tap into that. You know, the book is about empathy. I like how you said that. But we're also here today to talk about relationships because all business is the business of relationships. And I'll let you go into your questions.
Okay, awesome. relationships. So let's start. I want to start with a discussion about media relations right now during the pandemic. You know, we called this the Pitch Perfect Pandemic PR Panel. So what I want to do is talk to you guys about how you have altered your pitching strategy during the pandemic, because I mean, everything I'm reading right now is related in some way to the COVID-19 crisis. So, I mean, is it your sense that the pandemic is absorbing all the news media's capacity for coverage, or are they still interested in other stories? And if so, what?
You know, if I can jump in, Kimberly, on that.
Yeah, sure.
We worked with other PR agencies to do a survey of what was happening coverage-wise. Because obviously from our side as a PR agency and trying to pitch and work with media, it's really important to know what's going on. And across the board, if we looked at all major media, you know, we're talking about the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, CNBC, CNN, etc., 90% of all major media tier 1 coverage is COVID related. And if you don't have a COVID or COVID related story, you're out of business. But the game changes when you go to tech media or you go into verticals, the traditional trade media that we go to. Because while, yes, they're looking at COVID-related stories and how it's affecting their businesses, they're also looking at new products, new innovations, new services, trends, insights, the traditional business that they're in of moving that forward. And by the tech media, I'm talking about like The Verge, Tech Republic, those kinds of trades or tech media. And by trades, I'm talking about everything from American Cement to multi-channel news. So yeah, that's what we've seen. And that's important because as PR people, being able to speak to our audience about our clients and business is essential.
Absolutely. And as far as the fashion realm goes, you know, fashion brands from luxury like Prada, you know, Versace, Ralph Lauren, they've all like manufactured, you know, PPE equipment for the, you know, healthcare workers or the frontliners, right down to like food banks and blood banks and school organizations. So this is a big time for fashion to you know, show how they are stepping up and being part of the community and being relevant and being empathetic and focused on, you know, what the cause is. It's been very important for them.
We have a question from one of our members of the audience. Do you want to take us through that?
Let me ask one question first before we do that, because, you know, it's a fine line between like, you know, a tasteful, thoughtful COVID-19 pitch and, you know, an outright cringeworthy coronavirus pitch. And I've seen a good amount of coverage of distasteful PR pitches. Muckrack, Jessica Lawler, who's the editor at the Muckrack blog, ran a post featuring journalist tweets about bad COVID-19 pitches. And some of the ones that were on there were a pitch by a glasses company saying that, you know, it's good to wear glasses because it stops you from touching your face. Another was one about how installing AstroTurf can protect you from catching coronavirus. So have you had to argue against any tacky pitches that clients maybe brought up that you said, well, maybe we shouldn't go that way? And if so, how do you decide, you know, what's tasteful and what's not in this environment?
Yeah. You know, Corning is one of our clients. And in fact, this morning we were on a conference call specifically talking about it because we represent Corning and what they're doing in fiber, you know, fiber cable, and really supporting ISPs and the cable industry to provide the broadband infrastructure that allows so much communications and demand. But Corning is also a world leader in the testing kits and the glass pipettes and other areas that are essential in COVID testing. And you haven't heard about Corning's participation, their donations, and their other leadership areas of where they're working literally round the clock in manufacturing to help fight COVID. So our conversation was, I don't want to necessarily tout donations. Everyone's making donations. But I'd like other industries to know where your life sciences is being so critical and essential so that if I'm a cable operator and I'm buying your fiber, I think I would like to know, just as an FYI, that you're also very active in this area. It makes me feel really good about Corning to know that they're a front leader and so in demand.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. It is so important, again, to consult our clients that the tone is very important and you have to send the right message. You don't have a lot of time to do so because things are changing so fast, and customers will remember how you reacted and what sort of message you put out there to share. For the short term, it's important for our clients to either, one, be manufacturing, helping out the front lines, or two, if they don't have the facility or know-how, then they do fall back on, donating proceeds, of their sales towards an organization that can make a difference at this point. But then the big picture is brands that are sustainable. So it's about the education and being part of the solution going forward. So it's all about doing the positive. And if a client doesn't have anything like that, it's really going back to basics. We're looking deep within their assortment and what their plans are for spring, summer 20 and fall, winter 21.
I was looking through the emails that I'd received that were COVID or coronavirus related. I got my first one actually from Christopher Penn, who does the Trust Insights newsletter and who runs a company that is a data analytics company. And then I got one from, I think, my bank, and then a VentureBeat story. And, if I ran a histogram on it and I saw it just basically spike up real quick until, I basically became desensitized to the emails and started deleting them before I even opened them. And I noticed that like a lot of big brands sent me these COVID-19 emails that really had no newsworthy, relevant, useful information in them. They were just a link to the CDC website or a link to the SBA website of where you could apply for a loan. And I started thinking about this idea of, stuff we all know emails, kind of like stuff we all get swag, but you understand why a big organization would put out that email. Perhaps they feel pressure to not look tone deaf, to be connected. They want it to look like they're not asleep at the wheel. But, in that type of an environment, I'm not sure email is the best channel to communicate through, if they're not offering something new and useful. I did receive, I'll share a couple examples. I did receive a couple really useful emails. I received an email from Blueberry, the podcasting company, which hosts my podcast, with free, ready-to-go COVID PSAs that I could include in my podcast. I received an email from Canva, which has the online designs with all these COVID-19 social media templates for Instagram. I thought that was pretty novel. Talk to us about, what you're going through with your clients in terms of their need to feel like they're connected and to feel like they're part of the community and participating, and maybe perhaps sometimes being a little too aggressive with how they do that. How are you managing that with your clients?
Really?
Okay. So for the fashion industry, it really pretty much came to a halt. And everybody started isolating themselves. It took a while for them to feel comfortable enough to knowing where their the consumer to feel comfortable and know where their finances are, to if there's going to be any online shopping during the, quarantine period. So for brands to, put their message out there, it's extremely important. Not only that, it's the ones who have been able to, utilize their resources with manufacturing and keep some of the economy going with their workers and the sewers, and offer product for some of their e-commerce specialty stores to have merchandise available that is relevant to here and now. So if they are selling, stylish masks at this point, it can drive traffic to their site, and therefore some of these specialty stores and e-commerce, retail stores can still have some circulation and rotation.
Kimberly and I are very different businesses and perspectives in terms of what we're working with. Mm-hmm. Fashion being something that is so consumer driven, so of the moment. And I'll just say one of the biggest issues certainly is there's so much email and spam coming out about products that are not real, that people are taking their money or going to hoarders, or there's an authenticity issue that's there. In terms of B2B communications, which is where we spend most of our efforts, I think the issue is communicating effectively. How are you treating your staff? What are you doing with your employees? How are you providing the services and needs that need to get out there if you're a manufacturer? The stuff that people need to know in terms of supply chain management. And so I think each company has a different issue. If I'm Wells Fargo, I'm going to probably communicate something differently than if I'm Kaiser Permanente.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I'd like to just add and say the thing to keep in mind is we are in a wartime economy and a wartime experience. This is the entire world is at war. There is not any way that we should think that it's business as usual. The truth is, for most of us, we were involved in a growth and business transformation endeavor for years. It was how to make our businesses grow, get more leads, do more sales, and how do we transform our companies to be current and proper in this environment. Today, almost every business is not looking at growth and transformation. They are looking at liquidity. I've got 2 or 3 months cash flow in the bank. How do I maintain that to simply survive through this process, and what is it going to take? So I think there's a very different issue, and we need, as PR professionals, we really need to learn how to pivot to this new mentality of what it takes to stay liquid and survive. And for many companies, that's going to be about restructuring and not continue as we were.
That's a great segue because, I mean, we are at a standstill. I saw this morning, retail is hammered. I don't know if the markets have even really fully accepted and reacted to this standstill that we're in. We don't know how bad it is. We don't know how long it's going to last. And, in a down economy, typically marketing and PR is the first thing to go.
Yep.
So what I'd like to talk about, I'd like to hear from you guys is, what are you hearing from your clients? I mean, are they asking to cut their retainers? How is it impacting your portfolio business? And are you thinking about maybe new service offerings that would be more appropriate for lean times?
Well, again, going back to, how this has affected the fashion industry, absolutely 100%. I mean, we have clients that are, from Australia, from England, and, so like Bob was saying, this is a world, pandemic, and we're under siege, so to speak. So it has affected our overall bottom line. But there are a number of clients who are staying in the game. They understand that PR is very important. This is not a time to be quiet, and they need some guidance. And that's where, we come in and, with the years of experience and just, making sure that they're having the right voice and tone out there. Because there is no going back. You can't look back. You can only move forward, and you have to start off correctly. It's a very sensitive time right now.
So I just want to jump in on that. I agree, Kimberly. It is, for us, we haven't lost a single client, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I have reached out to some of the clients proactively to say, how does this affect you? How can we work together? A couple, we're going to be moving towards smaller retainer fees for the going forward and more on demand. We're seeing a growth of on-demand services because people want to harbor their cash. It may be that there's a change of what they may end up spending as much, but they're doing it in smaller increments to get what they want. And it's about a guaranteed product deliverable that they're buying in each time. And that's one way of responding to this. I think that let's talk generally about the 5 phases of what we're experiencing. And these are medical terms. And the first phase, of course, was the pandemic itself, when the infections, and we saw that. The second phase is mitigation, which we're currently in mitigation, which is safer at home, social distancing. And we're seeing a lot of messaging that needs to be done about that. The third phase is about to hit. And the third phase is when we start to come out of our houses and we begin to interact again. And there's going to be an increase in infections that go up. We are still establishing protocols. We don't have a shared sense of protocols of what is appropriate. We're learning as we go, and we find it differs by city, it differs by county, it differs by state, and it certainly differs with one country to another of what's appropriate. Communicating these protocols is going to be an essential part of our job in all areas and how we move forward. The fourth stage is going to be vaccination, right? Vaccination, when is that going to happen? Well, honestly, the pharmaceutical companies are just gearing up to begin testing, which will happen this summer for the most part. I think Israel has 2 vaccines that they think they can start to get to test in the next 60 days. Testing is a process. So we're going to look at this early fall as a time period where we'll start to see the kind of results that indicate we may have a variety of different vaccines that address different portions of what COVID affects. Then we have to do mass production of the vaccine to get a population inoculated. That's 9 months to a year.
Right.
So we're looking at a process that is really going to take us to the summer of 2021. And then we are in stage 5. What do you think stage 5 is, Eric?
What containment looks like, life after containment. I mean, my sense is there's going to be a lot of brands that need to relaunch.
Yes.
Everyone's going to have to relaunch their business.
And how do we prepare for the next pandemic? Because that's phase 5. We've gotten our vaccination, we're relaunching, we're re-engaging, and the world is going to be different. I don't know how yet, but we're not going back to what was before. We lost you, Kimberly.
It looks like she's having a little delay.
Yeah.
So we'll just give it a sec for that to reside.
Can we talk about trade shows and conferences in this regard?
Yeah, I mean, because I know a lot of them are going virtual now.
Yeah. So I'll just say, under the guideline of what I've spoken to, and no one has disagreed with me about this timeline, I believe that although a lot of conferences have been put off to beginning in August and September is packed, just solely packed. I think there's a lot of wishful thinking. I think there's a lot of daydreaming. I think we have a lot of companies that are still in the business of gatherings and providing, face-to-face community. And everyone from schools and campuses to conferences and trade shows are going to have to rethink. And again, I know, like, I was invited to a conference in Manhattan in October, and I said, when there's a vaccine, I'll come there. Otherwise, I'm available by video.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, perfect.
Did you want to add something?
Oh, well, I was just saying, the last comment is that the masks, what he was saying, what is it going to look like after containment, is that the mask is going to be part of street style, and it's here to stay for a long, long time. So any designers that can get in the game, it's not a bad thing to do, because it's going to be here for a while. So, and as far as trade shows go, yes, the largest trade show in the country for fashion is the Magic Trade Show that happens twice a year in Las Vegas, and it can make and break brands, and so it'll be interesting to see how they can infiltrate that back into generating, more business.
I have a client who specializes. His name's Bob Cooney, and he is a virtual reality specialist. And prior to the pandemic, he had been advising companies on how to use virtual reality in different aspects of their business. And you think about, what this means for virtual reality. This really is the moment for VR to step up to the plate. And really, even the definition of what is virtual is sort of finding its place. Originally we had thought virtual was just a headset, but if you use Slack, that's virtual working, right? And this obviously is a virtual conference. So, I mean, there are some events that I used to have to get into a car and attend that I now prefer to attend virtually. There are some that I would like to attend virtually as well. So from a comm standpoint, from a PR standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, do you think this sort of cements virtual experiences? And if so, what type of events are going to be right for virtual and what type of events are going to be right for real life?
I could start off by saying for fashion brands, instead of having a live runway show, then you can lean on virtual runway shows. So it'll be a smaller, more intimate group. You can practice social distancing between the models and amongst themselves, and then invitation.
We lost her. Looks like she's having a connection problem. Cindy Hunter has asked a question, and I'd like to bring her in via video to ask her question. Is that okay with her? I don't know. I'm going to allow her to talk and see if she wants to ask it herself. Cindy, if you're listening, I'm going to open it up so you can talk, okay? Cindy, do we have you there? Cindy, can you unmute your mic? Well, I guess not. I will go ahead and ask her question for her. She says, how do you help a client that's hurting because of the current environment? For example, one of our clients is an executive recruiter. And by the way, she gives you a shout out, Bob. Hi from Cindy Hunter. So why don't you take the question?
Yeah, I think we all have to look at each client and their business differently. The good news is, with so many people that are being let go, with the consolidation that's happened in the entertainment industry, I have not been corrected when I say nearly 10,000 entertainment executives have lost their jobs due to just the consolidation of the studios.
Wow.
That have gone on. So there's an enormous amount of talent that's out there. And I think from an executive recruiting standpoint, they ferreting through the degree of talent that's there and really helping to platforms that the companies that are hiring are getting the best is, I think, a real opportunity. And I think positioning like executive recruiters, I think they have their finger on the pulse of a lot of what's gone on, because a lot of leadership that's out there have been placed by these people.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting comment here from, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, from Rocio Prado. He says, I think that beside the rough time, it's an opportunity for brands to experiment with online tools and use them in the future, because it's going to change our way of doing things.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. We
okay,
got you
great.
back.
Great. I know Rocio. Hello, Rocio. Amazing. She works in the fashion PR industry with us, and from Argentina. And so she brings a very young, fresh perspective on, what she's attracted to as a consumer and as a marketer herself. So again, stories, Instagram, all the social platforms for the young are just vital right now. This is how we're going to actually educate the next group, and how to prevent from the next crisis, or how to better set ourselves up for not coming to this sort of catastrophe state that we're in. So yes, she is absolutely correct, and everybody has to embrace it.
I'd like to go back to the whole concept of conferences and this virtual lifestyle that you brought up, Eric. As Barbara Streisand once eloquently sang, people who need people are the luckiest people in the world, right?
Yeah.
So people need each other. We are gatherers. We like to gather together. We need each other. And the ability to have virtual is good, but it's virtual. It's not real. And, with conferences and trade shows and other gatherings, what happens over a cocktail? What happens in the schmooze time that goes on, in the handshake, in the moments between the presentation of the panel? A lot of business gets done just by being seen and being present and connecting with people. We are going to have to go back to that. We are not
Mhm.
individual cave dwellers, and to think otherwise is not true. I talked to a COO of a major healthcare company that spends over $6 million a year in rents and leases. And they said, we've distributed our entire workforce. No one was let go, but everyone's working from home. We kind of like this. And we think we can probably go back to leasing about $1.5 million of floor space. And when we need to bring people together, we will use a hotel ballroom. So I think we're going to see a lot of changes in both how we use our spaces, what's appropriate. We know we need to gather, but we may see smaller executive offices, conference rooms, and then an open space where people can kind of come in or work remotely. And for those of us who live in Los Angeles, not having to commute is phenomenal.
Yeah.
What strikes me as interesting, I mean, there's so many CFOs now looking at their balance sheet asking, how the heck am I going to cut expenses? I've got to lower expenses. There, so many employees had been telecommuting virtually already. Now this sort of forced everyone to be working from home. And, if the result is that organizations slash their commercial real estate investment and take a much smaller footprint to house employees, what does that do to sort of the ideation, the creative ideation that goes into PR campaigns? Because so much of that is about sitting down with other people. And I mean, we're doing it here virtually, but being in the same room with someone, we've always felt like there's an advantage to that. You guys both run agencies. What's your thought on that? I mean, are you going to go virtual? Are you going to have your same commitment to, office space as you always had?
We'll have the same commitment to office space as I've always had. We're all working remotely, but I've always felt that that innovation happens collaboratively together, and that tactful execution happens with people working from home and doing their task. But the innovation happens in that face-to-face meeting. So we're going to need some kind of combination of both. And in terms of this rejiggering of real estate, I think what we're going to see is a massive need for communicators to step up, because we're talking about restructuring. Imagine all those malls and high-rise office buildings that will be converted to new housing.
Yeah, our industry is definitely a hands touchy-feely. Yes, you can order things online, but when we do PR, we do a lot of photo shoots, and we work with stylists, and we work with talent, and doing fittings, and so it is a lot of one-on-one, face time. And so we will continue with the same space. Well, we're trying very hard to keep the same space, and look forward to returning back soon, hopefully. But we will probably be spacing our appointments, not having a lot of overcross, and keep minimizing the foot traffic. So our days may be longer, because we might have to stretch out our appointments starting earlier in the morning to later at night. If need be, then that's what we'll have to do.
There's another issue. Sorry. You're muted, Eric.
Just a quick note for attendees. The chat is moving too quickly for me to get your questions. So if you have a question, use the Q&A question feature in Zoom, and then I'll be able to address it. Bob, go ahead.
I had a brilliant thought, but I've lost it.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Do you have any novel ideas for how to adapt your service model based on this looming economic crisis?
Yeah. I think all of us have to adapt. So coming back to the verticals, the trade publications that is the lifeblood of so much industry. Advertising is going down. Conferences that used to be part of the community of every trade publication are non-existent. Finding ways to monetize content, whether it's virtual through social media or in these kinds of webinars, is going to be a challenge. It is a new economy that is emerging and a new price point that we haven't seen before. And that's going to be critical.
Well, just a note on that, and I think it's something clients miss a lot, but it's something we get because we work the editorial side of the outlet, not the advertising side of the outlet. So when we switch over to owned media and create our own content, we have to create editorial content that has some value. And I think if you do that, you have the right to present some sort of conversion opportunity in context. The problem is so many people come straight to market with an advertorial product and it's boring and nobody's interested.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Kimberly.
Oh, no, just like you were saying before, everybody kind of wants to be part of the party and with, consumer confidence. So there has to be something organic about it. And that's what's really important, going back to, being empathetic in your tone, but also being super clear and super genuine. We can smell it a mile away when you see something that's insincere. Or like you're saying, there's no interest because it's an advertorial. But if you can, outreach and get testimonials from real customers and kind of recycling old press, making new press, because those are, instant references for somebody to feel comfortable to, invest and vet their time.
We've gone through a few iterations of change. I've had my agency for 22 years, and you don't stay around without constantly reinventing yourself to stay current. One of the things that we started about a year and a half ago is we give guaranteed results in our contracts, so that for a PR agency, we're no longer promising we're going to work really hard for you. We're no longer promising we'll give our best efforts and see what we can do. We're saying these are how many placements in tier ones, how many placements in tier twos, what kind of bylines, what kind of speaking ops, what kind of exposure, what kind of thought leadership pieces will we draft and get out. And we're putting numbers to it. We're tracking it in our KPIs, key performance indicators, and we have monthly reports to say how are we doing against budget. Budget meaning you're buying guaranteed outcomes, not efforts. And that's one step in this retransformation that I think more people are going to look at. If companies are going to have to harvest and harbor their cash reserves, they are going to change what they're willing to buy and when to go to market.
And, going back to what you said earlier, it is about, customizing packages for the client's needs. Not every client has the same budget, has the same product, and therefore, it's easier to kind of, service them by the pound and not so much by a hard set retainer.
Right.
So
we've got a question, and I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name, but I'll try. It's Pia'a Arma. And the question is, are you encouraging your clients to participate or comment on the recovery? Is environmental, social, corporate communications part of the conversation?
I think this is a very risky time. And the truth is, what's to be gained by commenting, right? Unless you have facts or some insight and data, I would say keep your head down. Let's stick to playing the game of football that we're supposed to do. One of the big issues I was hearing today on NPR, not mine, but it's the limited information of saying how many people have tested positive. How many people tested positive out of how many people being tested? We don't know that number. It hasn't been reported. The CDC requires that all forms on testing be faxed or emailed to them where they're printed out and read by a human being. There's no automation going on. We don't know if people are working in congested areas that are getting COVID-19. We don't know if they're living in congested areas. We don't have enough data, and it's not being shared. In the absence of meaningful data to shape our medical establishment and the protocols and responses, if we want our clients to comment, they can only speak firsthand from their own experience and own that authenticity. And it needs to be relevant if it's right.
Right. Correct.
We have a question from Jonna Burke. She is the chair of AMEC, which is the monitoring association, the global organization representing the media monitoring community. And her question is, how will you balance the team's well-being by proposing longer hours and days after they acclimate to more flexibility with virtual?
It just, we're going to have to make it work. And on an eternal, team level, it's just something we're going to have to do and, adapt as we go. Maybe we host less appointments per day to fulfill, fit in within a timely, schedule. But it's just something we're going to have to trial and error.
Yeah. We have a client called Plume, which helps to manage Wi-Fi in the home. Comcast is a major investor. Cox is rolling it out. Rogers, Shaw. They have over 20 million homes, residential homes that they're in, and they are monitoring over 700 million smart home devices. And the reason for that is if you can reduce a call to your cable operator because a device isn't working, because they already see what's happening and can kind of fix that load and manage it, it's pretty good. And here's what we are seeing. There's a huge spike in PC use at home throughout the day, in the weekends, and through the weekends, the weeknights. What's happened is the 8-hour workday is history. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And it's probably not going back. The use of entertainment devices, whether it's your set-top box or PlayStation device or whatever that you're using to access and stream entertainment, is going on during the day because there may be kids at home or you may be streaming something in the background. But it's zooming up at unbelievable levels. And more importantly, we're seeing cell phones as well being used throughout the day with spikes throughout the evening. The bottom line here is, how do you put back in the box an 8-hour workday?
That's good. If you do leave your home on a regular basis to going to an office, you're just going to, shut it down during certain hours. If it's time to dedicate to your family, if it's time to dedicate to taking, self-care, if it's a massage or meditation or whatever it may be. I mean, we're really just going to have to be, kind to ourselves and people that we're around and have some foresight. Because if we overextend ourselves or burn ourselves out, it's not going to be, fruitful at the end of it. So.
And Pia has just made a comment in the chain about, and I'll just read it, recovery hopefully will include recognition that part-time gig workers, et cetera, are essential to the economy and will need better pay, healthcare, et cetera. And I think you're right on there, Pia. I think we need to reevaluate how we're treating people. I would like to believe that every pandemic, I just came out of Passover, the plagues, right? What is the message of the plagues? Can we hear it? And ultimately, I'd like to believe that we come out of this with a better symbiotic relationship of those that can taking care of those that can't, of taking care of the environment that can't, of taking care of the animals that can't, because we're seeing better air, better water. We're seeing that we need to have a new kind of economy where people of value at any level are being recognized, compensated, and protected appropriately.
Absolutely. Amen.
We have a question from Pam Miller. She's a veteran tech comms practitioner in Seattle. Pam, welcome. She says she's seeing news about many of the media outlets continuing to furlough and or lay off staff. Have these changes impacted you in the short term?
Yes, as far as I think it's impacted all of us, no matter what industry you're in. Again, going back to the fashion industry, absolutely, things have come to a halt. Brick and mortar stores aren't even open, and buyers are afraid to buy anything further. So you're jeopardizing your wholesale team, and I'm definitely if they've had to let people go, and if they're going to rehire them after. So, but it's going back to, the PR part of it is really maintaining a strong, positive, forceful voice. Like, we've got to get through it. Like he said, everybody's going to find the value and protect that value, but we have to do it together, stay positive, and go after better results, not what we were doing before this happened. It needs to change, and it is going to change.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's crazy time, crazy days, and I get angry when I'm with some very entitled people complaining that they went to CVS and couldn't get their $10 bonus bucks, and how they were struggling to get that department, which was not open, and respond to them, so they got their $10 bonus bucks. People have lost jobs. People are trying to make ends meet. People are dying. We have to become sensitized and find out how to participate. I am overwhelmed, and I don't know how to give back into the community of need. I really don't. I think that this is a communications issue that I'd like to hear more of. For example, we talked about Cindy Hunter. Cindy and I worked years ago in launching a silver disinfectant that was used in hospitals, and how great. I don't know which disinfectants to use and not to use, right? What's the difference between disinfectants? There are so many. Where is that communication? Where is the communication that is telling us how to help and where to step in? My sister was telling me in London, there was a guy who was going around his house 1,000 times and hoping people would make a donation, and he would raise a pound from every person he knew, and he would get 1,000 pounds to give to National Health to use for their charities. He's raised 7 million pounds already.
Wow.
And it's growing.
That's incredible.
But
hey, I want to switch gears because there's a bunch of other stuff I do want to ask.
Sure.
Have you guys pitched any new business via Zoom?
You mean for new clients?
Yeah.
I have not personally. I've been, interacting with my staff on Zoom and personal parties, and we had a quarantine time yesterday, so that was great with some people in the industry. So, but nobody knew yet.
So we're very active. We use Microsoft Teams, we use Zoom, we use WebEx, we use Skype, and we use WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And then there's like the Slacks and all the others. The level of platforms for us to communicate on has exponentially grown. And just to be clear, we were very, very busy in new business. And then 2 weeks ago, it kind of fell off, but we're still in a new business conversation. And I believe in May, we'll be bringing on new clients.
Right on.
Bob, you wrote this article in PR Daily about dark PR, which basically includes the placement of negative stories, anonymously drafted attack pieces, misleading content on influential websites, payments to unscrupulous journalists, hiring social media trolls to post negative comments and flood search results with negative content to drive positive results down. It's clearly, stealing a page from the playbook of politics. Talk to us about the story you wrote, your experience in this area of dark PR.
Yeah, I think public relations as a profession has changed dramatically in my lifetime and in my professional lifetime. And part of that is the line in the sand keeps moving. For example, we write bylines for executives that get placed in trades. The executive didn't write it, we did. For example, we'll write posts in LinkedIn and we're posting for our companies or our clients, they're not even reviewing what we're doing. We're posting in Facebook, we're posting in Twitter, we're posting in Instagram. And then we get into crisis communications. And in crisis communications, somebody always says the other guy's the bad guy, and they want to get even. So what does that mean? Well, it turns out there are legitimate publications that I won't name whose webmasters will be accept for a couple $100 to take a story down. And you'll get an error 404 if you look for that story to come back up. There are reporters who will take a fee and write a hit story with information that you can provide about the opposition to your client, and get it placed in a legitimate trade or a legitimate business publication to drive forward the conversation that the other guy is incredible. I call that dark PR. When we start not traditionally trying to get recognition for the good things that we do and instead try to attack the bad side of the other side. We saw that, for example, in when Whole Foods CEO started anonymously posting all kinds of terrible things about Sprouts when they were trying to merge with Sprouts, right? Today, that's no CEO would do it themselves. They would hire a PR agency that would be happy to go on an attack campaign and reputation because we have so many digital sites that are available.
Have either of you come head to head with a troll farm or with a troll operation that you had to sort of debunk or defang?
Yeah, Reddit is a great place. I'm sorry, Kimberly.
Yeah, no, I haven't. We personally haven't. I got to tell you, the fashion tends to be more on the positive. What's looking forward, season to season. The sustainable area of fashion, though, it can get, calling people out, oh, that's being greenwashed, or you're not using enough UN sustainable goals and things like that. So in the sustainable field, it can be a little bit more accountable than the other areas.
Right. And all it takes is an ounce of credibility to get a veracity of getting a story to move from the outer fringes of online chat boards and the rest to come to mainstream media. And today, the misinformation of COVID takes only 14 days to come forward and become repeated by the media. One of the things that happened in the great recession of 2008 was so many journalists were laid off that what makes any kind of news outlet really viable is their ability to investigate and look at stories that haven't been told and investigate that. And that takes a lot of time and bandwidth that they don't have, especially as more and more people are let go, right? LA Times just let go another 40 people because of a lack of advertising. So the bottom line is reporters don't have the bandwidth to completely vet their sources and get things done in the traditional sense. It's easy to slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
Just to add something, last week we had Cami Heiza on the show, and she does a LinkedIn Live. She had Scott Bardell on, who I've known for a while. He's out of Texas, and he was talking about Earned Plus Media. He was talking about these sort of outlets where you pay a fee and you can publish. And there's one called community.co. And they have these councils. You pay a couple grand a year, you're part of a community, and they have a deal with Forbes where if you publish stuff, and it's, you can't just write anything, they're very strict on inbound links and that type of thing, but you can publish and it will run as an advertorial. And obviously that's a way for Forbes to pick up a few extra bucks. They're doing it with business journals. They're doing it with Ad Age as well. So in this area of sort of the halfway line between earned and paid, are you guys doing anything there?
We are not. We're going solely after credibility and being as organic and clear as possible, because again, We're not paying influencers. We're not paying talent. We're not paying for pay-to-play editorial. We're really pushing on what's good about the product, what's good about the brand. You know, if they're active in their community as far as like, you know, with charities or moving forward with sustainability, that is newsworthy. And especially if the voice is more important now than ever. So we're really pushing hard on the positives and why it's so important to pay attention to this for the better good for all. So,
you know, I have to say we have. There are plenty of places for pay for getting your story out there. Forbes has its Forbes Tech Council and Leadership Council, and for $1,500 you can be at Forbes. There are a number of industry analysts who have become contributed writers at Forbes, and if you sign up with them, they can write nice positive stories about your clients. There are, and that's just Forbes, which is a huge readership, but Forbes has made a business out of free content that comes into it from credible contributors. I think this is we're going to see a lot more of this, and it's pretty common.
Yeah, the pay to play kind of thing.
Right.
So we just have a little bit of time left, and I want to talk about influencer relations because, in order to be successful in influencer relations, you do have to go one-to-one with an influencer because everybody wants something different. And, PR has really stepped up to the plate in that area. So talk to us about, how this has changed your influencer relations approach.
Well, Kimberly, this is really your category because fashion is driven by influencers. How are you working with that?
Daily. And it's a very diligent effort because it's about collecting data and sourcing through data and communicating one-on-one with them. If they're not local, am I still there?
Yeah,
we got you.
I'm sorry, it looked like I left. If they're not local, then it's definitely starting up relationships through their DMs. But again, we have been very privileged to have a beautiful space downtown, to open it up for magazines, to host their editorial shoots on site. So they invite influencers into our doors, as well as, influential actors.
Right.
Well, it looks like we
lost Kimberly.
Lost her.
There, you're
back.
You're back.
I'm back. Yeah. So influencer, it's been extremely important. The relationships that we have cultivated over the years, they've stayed, true and honest with the with the products that they've really, endorsed without any pay. So it has been very organic, and we are proud of that and want to continue that.
Is there a mommy blogger that will write about one of your clients without pay?
Mommy blogger, no, but they're mommy influencers. So if they're bloggers, they will not write a piece on it. No, not without. I have not in a long time. But I don't have any Mommy and Me products right now, but we've done diaper bags and all sorts of things for Mommy and Me. But we do have people that will post on Instagram and tag and do things like that. And followership, it could be 1 million plus. So we're very fortunate in that area.
Hey,
but it's tough. You got to keep going on it.
For all of you who ask questions, thank you. I think what I'm going to do from now on is I'm going to say, if you ask a question, let me know in the question if I can bring you on screen. And then I'll be able to actually bring people on screen and they'll be able to ask their questions live. Next week, we have the CEO of Talkwalker, Todd Grossman. Talkwalker really, they've skyrocketed to the top of the social media monitoring space. They also have influencer monitoring. It's a killer platform. Todd started at PR Newswire. He was at Multiview in sales after that. Then he founded an educational foundation that he led for 13 years. So he's really got a strong CSR backbone. He's been at Talkwalker for the last 5 years, really overseeing their meteoric rise. And I'm excited to have him on the show next week. So if you're watching this on Facebook or on YouTube, keep in mind, or on LinkedIn, keep in mind you can watch it live if you go to prtechwednesdays.com and just sign up, and then you can, be part of the discussion. I want to thank Flux Branding. Flux Branding is a world-renowned resource for defining your visual brand. Flux Branding is a group of creative visionaries and graphic designers dedicated to helping clients build brand identities. More information at ericschwartzman.com/Flux Branding. And I want to thank Digital Dragon, where children can develop the skills they need to prosper in the age of machines. Digital Dragon teaches digital literacy to tomorrow's programmers, and you can find out more about them at ericschwartzman.com/DD. I want to thank Kimberly and Bob for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for.
It's a pleasure, and I'm thrilled with all the people that tuned in.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for showing up. This has been Eric Schwartzman, and we will see you next Wednesday.
Bye.